And welcome back to Dreamscape Horsemanship's Groundwork for Success series. Today we're standing here with 5-year-old Moose. He's a Clydesdale gelding in for training, and before we get on him today, I just wanted to make a quick video about another kind of step in our desensitization process, and this will be the first time he's seeing this particular exercise. So today we're talking about the exercise ball, or just a ball in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be an exercise ball. The nice thing about the exercise balls is they bounce a little bit nicer, and they're a pretty decent size, and it's the sound they make that makes the exercise ball unique compared to other types of like soccer balls, volleyballs, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to show you the steps that I use to desensitize horses to this particular type of object. I definitely recommend having your horse on a lead for this. You don't want them to get overwhelmed and start looking for exits in the arena, crashing through fences and all that kind of stuff. And the nice thing about having him on a lead is I can control his reaction, or help him control his reactions. So if he gets really upset and nervous, I can actually teach him how to deal with getting nervous and bring him back down to a level of relaxation, and you just can't accomplish that when the horse is running around loose. Because if he gets really upset about it, I want to be able to tone down the exercise and build up his confidence rather than just bombarding him with stimuli. Because at the end of the day, the desensitization exercises don't work if you don't teach the horse how to deal with scary objects. There's only so many things you can expose your horse to in a training situation. So it's best to teach them how to react to scary things and be able to bring themselves back down to a level of relaxation. Like he's already kind of licking and chewing and sucking on the bit here. So that's a better level of reaction than letting him just run around panicked. So, really the first thing I usually do is I usually just kind of move it around with me between the ball and the horse. Just allows him to kind of get an idea for the movement of the ball, the sound of the movement, without it kind of coming towards him, because obviously that would be a little bit too high of a threshold to start with. So I'm just going to kind of gently bump it around and kind of lead him with me. And if he goes to spook at it or does something silly, I'm just going to kind of ignore him for the most part and just keep moving around. Kind of like bounce it a little bit, make some noise. You can see right there already he's not really getting, like he's not a fan of the noise, so we're going to work on that. Make sure his saddle's tight just in case he has to jump sideways. I'm going to move it over here. And then I'm just going to kind of start bouncing it. And let him deal with this over here, the sound and the movement. There's a lot of flies, and that's why he's kicking up at his belly there. The fly spray didn't really do anything. So when he seems okay with this, I'm going to kind of bring it towards the left shoulder, because the left shoulder is the one that's obviously a little nicer on the left side when it comes to desensitizing. So I always want to start with introducing things that he hasn't seen on that side. So I'm just going to kind of move towards the shoulder, but I'm trying to keep the ball as controlled as possible. And I'm just going to kind of bounce it around, and I'm going to start walking towards his hip. If he disengages his hip, that's okay, because I'm technically going to be walking towards his hip, but as long as he does it in a relaxed fashion, So he's already gone through our groundwork program here. So he's already done a few desensitization exercises. So by the time we get to this point, he shouldn't really have too much of a reaction to something new because we've already done all the other stuff. And again, I'm going to try and keep the ball as controlled as possible with me. If it does happen to get away on me, I'm not going to punish him for spooking at it because that was my fault, not his. And I've got my lead ready that if he kind of moves his hip towards me, I'm just going to disengage that hip. But so far, so good. And we're going to bring it back over here and quiet it down for a second. So the next stage is going to be to let this touch him. So I'm going to bounce it, and I'm going to kind of bump it towards his shoulder and let him get used to it bouncing beside him and touching him at the same time. So I'm actually going to start with the right shoulder just so you guys can see it a little better. I'm just going to get it bouncing again. And I'm just going to ever so slightly, after he's done taking that flies, just going to kind of catch my hand under it and bump it against him. Get my hand under it and just lightly let it bounce against him. It's kind of like, what the heck are you doing? One more time. So right there he kind of flinched, but he didn't really go anywhere. So I'm just going to quiet that down, rub that spot away, make sure he's not going to be too flinchy, and I'm just going to let him know that he did a good job by not reacting too much to it. And we're going to try again. So if he was to spook and try and pull away, I'm just going to stay with him a little bit and just disengage that hip to bring the situation back under control, because I'm not going to punish him for moving his feet, because that's just going to reaffirm that this is something to be worried about. If he has to move his feet a little bit, I'm going to let him do that, but I'm going to try and keep it in a controlled fashion. If he absolutely loses his mind and tries to run away, then we're going to take the exercise down a notch and start with a spot where he's comfortable and work our way up from there. But so far, he's doing pretty good. I'm going to start bouncing it again. I'm going to let it bump him. There, so already we're getting a little bit nicer. I'm going to kind of move towards the saddle a little bit. I might even kind of just bounce it like this in my hands, because it's a little bit easier to control that way. And just kind of bump him with it. I've taught him to do. So that wasn't anything to do with him worrying about the ball. Same on this side. So right there, he's having a little bit of a moment with it, so we're just going to keep bouncing. Let him know that it's nothing to be afraid of. Like, what the heck? There we go, that was better. So that second time he didn't flinch so bad, so I'm going to let him have that moment. So his owner is planning on doing a lot of mounted medieval demonstrations. Mounted medieval demonstrations and mounted archery, all that kind of stuff. He has to be used to things bumping his shoulder or his hip while he's under saddle. So this is the perfect exercise to do to get him used to that. Same with the plastic bag on the stick that we did last week. Because every little bit of groundwork is going to help get this guy used to what his future is going to be. And then once we go under saddle and actually get rolling consistently under saddle, I've been on him a couple times just kind of sitting there. Yesterday I was in the little pen, we just moved his hip around. So today we're hoping to kind of move his hip around a little bit more, if the wind cooperates with us, and get him kind of walking circles and hopefully maybe a little bit of trot in this little pen behind the camera. But all of this little stuff that we're doing here might not seem like much on camera, but it's going to do a world of good for this horse for what his owner wants to do with him. She informed me of the fact that she tends to, when she does her demonstrations, she wears full armor. And sometimes even the horse has armor, so he has to get used to weird sounds. He has to get used to things bumping him, because I can pretty much guarantee if you're mounting a horse in full armor, you're probably not very graceful with it. So all that little stuff he has to get used to before he goes home. not that scared. Go back to this side because we didn't go all the way down. There, perfect. A little bit of a flinch and a disengage there, but not that big of a deal. I'm not going to punish him for taking that one little step because he didn't take it out of fear. It's more that I'm kind of annoying the heck out of him. So I'm not gonna even worry about that step. I'm not even going to acknowledge that he took it. I am going to get him to step up though. So the next step, I'm just going to lightly roll this, and when I mean lightly roll it, don't kick it at them. That is probably one of the worst things you can do. It's just a lot of aggressive energy that you really don't need to do. It's not necessarily going to make your horse any calmer in the long run. You might think it's going to, but really, it's not going to make any difference. So I'm just going to use my foot and I'm just going to kind of gently roll it to him. My goal is to kind of bump his leg with it and have it roll back to me so that we can almost play this little game of soccer without having him move. If he actually goes to investigate the ball or roll it back towards me on his own, I'm totally going to allow that. He may or may not have a little bit of an issue. He didn't like the plastic bag under his chin, so we were working on that. So he might have the same reaction with this. I'm just going to lightly roll it towards him, let it bump him. With all the weeds in the arena, it's not rolling quite as straight as I want it, so I'm going to kind of use my hand here to direct it instead. So I'm not going to worry too much about him taking that one step back, because again, he's not running away, but I am going to ask him to step back up to where he was. There we go. And repeat. And I'm terrible at this. But again, if you kind of lose control of the ball like that and it goes in a direction you didn't necessarily want it to go, not a big deal. It's all part of the desensitization process anyway. Good boy. There, so that was very nice. Bouncing it under his chin and he didn't really have too much of a concern. I'm going to roll it to him with a little bit more force and try and see if I can bounce it off his leg. Good job, buddy. And I want to do the same thing with his back legs as well, but I'm going to stand kind of at that same 45-degree angle that we've done with all of our other desensitizing. Oh. And I'm just going to bounce it off the one leg and have it bounce back towards me. There. A little concerned. Not too bad though. Yeah. Roll it back to this side. Step back up to where he was. And right there where it kind of rolled underneath him, I'm going to stay out of the way and let it continue all the way through because if he happens to spook at that, I didn't mean to roll it underneath him, but if he happens to spook at that, I don't want to be in the way. This ball is soft enough that if he was to jump on top of it, the ball's just gonna break, and it shouldn't hurt him any when it does so, because this is just a regular exercise ball from the hardware store, so not too concerned if he happened to land on it because he's spooked. I'd rather have him land on the ball than me. But again, I didn't mean for it to go underneath him. It was just the way the ball rolled along the weeds in here. So the next step is actually to kind of roll this up his shoulder and let it fall on the other side. And I'm going to want to make sure I'm standing at that 45-degree angle because if he jumps towards me because it's away from the ball, I don't want to get stepped on. Didn't quite get it up there because he's a big horse. see if I can get him to kind of gently bump the ball with his own feet. I'm just gonna ask him to step up to it, and hopefully he doesn't step right onto the ball. I just want him to step up and just kind of bump it a little bit. So I'm just gonna kind of keep getting him to kind of step off to the side here until he eventually bumps this ball. There we go, and release. Just kind of looking at me as if like, oh my gosh, it touched me. Again, just kind of get him to step up. Right there, he touched it, so I'm gonna let go. Now I'm gonna kind of bring him back to this side, see if we can't, there we go. Bump it even more. Because eventually, an obstacle that's pretty common in Cowboy Challenge is to get the horse to kick a ball to a particular location. So eventually, I want to be able to track this thing almost like it's a cow and move it around the arena, assuming his big feet don't break it. There we go. And ask for one more step, see if I can get that other foot over here. Perfect! That was a very nice one. So I'm not necessarily like asking him to step right up and kick it. I'm just kind of asking him to step up, and the ball just kind of happens to be there. And after we step this way, there we go. He's kind of getting the idea. He's almost starting to move it out of his way before he takes that step. I'm going to ask him to see if I can get a step up. Step up and move the ball. There we go. Perfect. So that's pretty much that exercise. Of course, you can always keep refining it until you can bounce it all over, throw it over their back, all that kind of stuff, have them kick it all over the arena. But that just kind of shows you the beginnings of it. And as with any desensitization exercise, you keep building on it until he can pretty much stand there ground tied, and you just keep throwing the ball all over the place.